All right. Hey, sunshine. This is session 2 of your birth chart. And yes, let's get into houses 7 through 12. First and foremost, right? Let's get into your 7th house. Your 7th house is pretty interesting as the cusp of your 7th house is Scorpio, specifically 28 degrees Scorpio. So, what this means, like your first house, right? Because the first house and the 7th house are like opposite to each other. The first house is the ascendant, the 7th house, the descendant. Like your first house, which is 28 degrees Taurus, and then 22 degrees Gemini. Your 7th house is 28 degrees Scorpio, but most of it, 22 degrees of your 7th house, is in the sign Sagittarius. So ultimately, the energy of Scorpio is a little bit more prominent within your 7th house because it's the cusp. It's where the energy is initiated. You feel what I'm saying? It's like emanating, like radiating Scorpio energy. But as we progress into your house, we also see Sagittarius. So what this means is that there are also Sagittarian energies within your 7th house, but those Sagittarian energies may be a bit more dormant, a bit more unrecognizable when compared to the Scorpio traits where your 7th house is concerned. But even though the Sagittarius energy is a bit more concealed, a bit more dormant, meaning that it kind of takes a little bit more for those energies to manifest, nevertheless, they're there, right? So first and foremost, with you having your 7th house within the sign Scorpio, it's an indication that your 7th house ruler is Mars. And in the next section, right, when we get into the planets, then I'll get more into how Mars is influencing your 7th house when I actually talk about Mars. But ultimately, Mars is influencing your 7th house. So, like, the house that you have Mars in influences the 7th house, right? So let's see where you have your 7th house. We'll look into it now, briefly. So you have your Mars within the 2nd house in the sign of Cancer, which means your Mars is debilitated, right? It is in its detriment, in a sense, you know, like when Mars is in Scorpio, it doesn't do so well. But anyways, with you having Mars ruling over your 7th house within your 2nd house, it's an indication that where 7th house energies are concerned, personal possessions, values, resources, personal resources are very much influential and impactful. And so I just kind of wanted to skim into that, you know, because in order for me to go more into that and give more detail, I'll be taking up a lot of time that's intended for the next session, but instead consume this session. So I'm not going to go too deep into how, you know, Mars is influencing the 7th house from the 2nd house, but that is definitely an aspect necessary to take into consideration. You feel what I'm saying? When you truly want to have a thorough understanding of your natal chart, your energetic signatures. Now, with your 7th house, right, being the house of personal relationships, whether those are intimate relationships or business relationships, and furthermore, the 7th house, you know, ruling over like the public world, your public association. It's like how you associate with the public, right? And the 7th house also dealing with, hold on, give me a sec. Also the 7th house dealing with Well, it deals with things like legality, laws, lawsuits, lawyers, paperwork, legal documents type energy. But for the most part, where it's more prominent is its personal relationships, because the seventh house is associated with the sign Libra, right? The sign of intimate personal relationships. So first and foremost, Scorpio is the feminine expression of Mars. And Mars is the planet of aggression, the planet of strife. You feel me? The planet of like struggle. It deals with overcoming things. On one end, right, Mars deals with overcoming things. But then on the other hand, it can deal with accomplishing things. You feel what I'm saying? In a sense, like an accomplishment is an overcoming of failures. You feel what I'm saying? Technically. Although Mars is a maleficent planet, meaning it brings maleficent energies to you, right? It brings enemies, because the sign Scorpio is the sign of enemies, open enemies specifically. And so is the 8th house. The 8th house is the house of open enemies. So the 8th house and the 12th house both deal with enemies. But the 12th house deals with hidden enemies, right? People around you that have hidden, concealed intentions, but they keep them concealed enough, to the point that you don't really know what their true intention is. But the 8th house is, they'll be in your face. They'll let you know they don't F with you, right? They'll be haters. And this is because the Scorpio energy deals a lot with like envy, jealousy, revenge, anger, rage. But it's like, as the masculine expression of Mars, Aries is full, explosive, extroverted forms of anger, right? Mars is like the Spartans, right? The Romans. And Mars will escalate an issue real quick. It's a fire sign. So, Aries, right? It's a fire sign. So it'll escalate an issue real quick and have no issue causing a scene. But Scorpio is more repressed where revenge, anger, and jealousy is concerned. It's more operating behind the scene. You feel what I'm saying? And as I'm breaking this down, you're going to resonate with this because, you have your moon in the sign, Scorpio. But anyways, to tie this to your 7th house, you feel what I'm saying? With Mars being within your 7th house, with Scorpio being within your 7th house and Mars being the ruler of your 7th house, it indicates that you're going to experience certain struggles in partnerships and relationships, you feel what I'm saying? And so where Scorpio is concerned, Scorpio can be like attachment, for starters. It can be an aspect of relationships, right? Unhealthy attachments, where because Scorpio is more feminine, more concealed, more hidden, like it's not full blown on your face, but it's more things that are hard and create struggle, that are kind of more behind the scenes, more unconscious. So the way that this can play out is you can get into a relationship even with quote unquote, right, over exaggerating your enemy, right? And you can be in this relationship with the enemy, but it may take you a little bit longer to realize it or accept it. I think accept it is a better word, and this is kind of me explaining the energy, right? And in a sense, in an exaggerated way. And you can take the pieces and apply it into your life. And so Scorpio, right, because Mars is the planet that deals with prisons, imprisonment. Now, both Scorpio and the 12th house deals with imprisonment. Now, the 12th house deals with literal institutions, and this can be mental asylums, it can be prisons, but then the 8th house kind of deals with, in a sense, self-imposed prisons, you feel me? And it can literally extend to physically being incarcerated, you feel what I'm saying? Now, what happens here is, like, because I personally love Scorpios because of their intensity, right? They're very intense people. So to tie this with you, when it comes to your love experiences, personal relationships, typically there are very intense undertones, overtones, however you can put it, about that dynamic, about that relationship. You know, everything is intense. When there's love, the love is very powerful and potent and, you know, like thick. Like you can cut I want to say tension, like the sexual tension, we can even say, you feel me? The connection, like it's so intense, you feel what I'm saying? But when things are bad, things are awful. They're very awful and bad. But because it's not so much Aries, so it may not so much play out as aggressively combating. It may more so play out through manipulatively being emotionally like attacked. You feel what I'm saying? Like with the 7th house in Scorpio, there can be these tones of getting in relationships with even narcissists and things like that. You feel me? People that may appear, and then you may get into a personal relationship and there may be certain unhealed traumas about them that they may come to you in order for you to heal. You feel what I'm saying? Because Scorpio is one of those signs of healing. Like Scorpio, Mars, right? Mars is a planet. It deals with doctors. Like a couple of planets deal with doctors, you feel me? But Mars specifically deals with surgeons. But broadly though, where Scorpio is concerned, so Scorpio, I think I already told you this when we were first talking. Scorpio in its evolution is first ruled by Mars, right? Then in its shedding of its skin, and this is like it's ruled by Mars, and that's like it's the Scorpion, right? The Scorpion who lives in the desert, who has to operate at nighttime, who's a prey, right? Hunts, right? Kills its prey, things like that. Very aggressive, you know. Scorpions are recognized to have capacities to feel immense jealousy, immense revenge, and they can like generate immense amounts of passion and like love. And what I'm trying to say is like a lot of Scorpion species, or I think this is just equated to Scorpions in general, have the capacity to spend, you know, like intercoursing with a mate for like long periods at times, you feel what I'm saying? And then in that building of that connection, they start to generate immense amounts of jealousy, anger, and passion. You feel me? So Scorpio is just an energy that's very vengeful. And the thing about Scorpio is they're both the scorpion and the spider right there, enactnids or something like that. And it's interesting because there's the Greek story of Enactnus, right? And I know I'm not saying it right, but the words and the vibrations are so close. I think you may know what I'm talking about. So Enactnid was this lady who was a powerful weaver, right? She weaved beautiful pieces together using yarn, and she made like amazing art pieces with like weave. And then she became overly prideful, you feel me? Overly fixated in her vibes and in her way. And she started to boast about how she was spectacular and amazing, and her mortal abilities outweighed the gods in their immortality. Like, she was better than them, you know what I'm saying? And so one of the goddesses, she descended, and they kind of did a challenge, and I think that Enacted, she won, but because of how rude Enacted was to the goddess, I forget the name of the goddess, but because of how rude she was, the goddess made an example of her and, you know, turned her into a spider to, for the rest of her life, you know, weave spider webs, you know what I'm saying? And yeah, you know, I just wanted to share that story as well, because it's very much connected with the Scorpio energy. But, you know, more of the story with the 7th house, because it's almost 20 minutes now and I've been talking about the 7th house. More of the story with the 7th house is, on one end, it is immense intensity, right? But then on the other hand, where once negativity is transcended, right? Because after the Scorpio's animal totem, we can say, then becomes like the snake. You feel what I'm saying? The snake. And this is Pluto, and this aspect of the snake, like the snake deals very much with sexual energy, right? And so this is where like the fertility aspect of Scorpio comes into play. This is where like Scorpio in a sense transcends. Like, it's still somewhat on, because like Mars also deals with sexuality. But one of the things when it's the snake is most definitely sexuality, but furthermore, the snake is like a symbol of like consciousness and creation and spirituality, you know what I'm saying? But like, so Pluto is where like the Scorpio energy gets into transformation and transcending itself. But then beyond Pluto and beyond the snake, the Scorpio, like Scorpio is also associated with the eagle, right? Some say like the phoenix, and yeah, it's very true, like the phoenix, but the phoenix is more so of a Pluto, like the phoenix and the snake. I guess one thing that the phoenix and the snake have in common is they both, in a sense, have this tendency of shedding their skin or whatever, you know? But the eagle, right? And the thing about the eagle is this association between Scorpio and the eagle is like Scorpio having transformed and transcended itself amongst the Plutonic energy. And Pluto is a very dualistic energy. On one end, it deals with intense, horrendous, horrific experiences. Like Pluto is like the scariest of the planets, right? It is mass murder, you feel what I'm saying? It is like just twisted things, you know, like just twisted things. But simultaneously, Pluto, because that's like its inverted aspect, right? But on the same side, Pluto can deal with the highest expression of spirituality. Like Pluto is the last planet. It is like the planet, because it's the last planet and because it's the 10th planet. And the number 10, you know, it's a sequencing of a new number cycle. 10 is a higher octave of 1. So when you're on 10, you're on a new plane of existence, you know, a new plane of numbering, if that makes sense. So yeah, Pluto is like that polarity. But once Scorpio transcends into like the spiritual plane, it becomes symbolized by the scorpion. You feel what I'm saying? Because, I mean, by the eagle. But you know what? I'll get more into that later. We'll get more into why Scorpio is associated with the eagle and how Scorpio is connected to Mercury later. But I brought all that up to bring up that it's not all bad. Like with you having Mars and Scorpio, I mean, with you having your 7th house in Scorpio, it generally does express somewhat wonky because it's a negative receptive sign. But yeah, we'll talk more about this later. But in conclusion though, immense amounts of energy, emotional energy specifically, are invested where personal relationships are concerned. So the better you can learn to manage emotions, both your emotions and others, in the sense of how you correlate and connect with others, because you know, as I'm sure you watched the course, Scorpio deals with the second emanation. Because it's a second emanation sign, what this means is that it is a sign of like modification. Scorpio acknowledges and recognizes its emotions, but then modifies its emotions by what it receives from the world outside of it, the emotions it receives from others. You feel what I'm saying? Whereas Cancer is just the first emanation, so it only kind of goes according to its own emotions, what it cares about, how it feels. You feel what I'm saying? Scorpio more so modifies its influence. You know, and like, I guess one aspect of this is sex, right? Because Scorpio rules sex, and sex is one of those things that is intimate, but it kind of is a two-party thing, and like you're receiving and you're enjoying, you kind of have to like give, accommodate, you feel me? So Scorpio can be an accommodative sign emotionally. So it is of importance to learn emotional management where personal relationships are concerned. But yeah, you know, so I kind of, the thing with astrology is, I'm sure you're aware, is I just spent like 20 minutes talking about the 7th house. So there's so many different angles to go into it. But I would say we can move on, right, into the 8th house. So your 8th house, your 8th house, your 8th house, your 8th house. See where your 8th house is at. So your 8th house is obviously within the sign Sagittarius. So real quick, because you have your 7th house, some of it in the sign Sagittarius, there are also aspects dealing with like spiritual illumination where relationships are concerned. Like Sagittarius 7th house gives insight into an individual who needs like philosophy and spirituality in one's relationship. They have a desire to connect with another who is also interested in those things, you know. And because of that, like, and a little bit of Scorpio too can associate with this, because of the Sagittarius dealing with illumination and the desire for higher thought, it kind of has to learn to integrate with itself and cultivate its own like true religion, you know. Like it has to be on accord with its beliefs and its religion and things like that first, before, you know, it can like go out and seek relationships. But anyways, so your 8th house, your 8th house, so your okay, I'm just looking at your chart right now because I was operating under the influence that you have a stellium in Sagittarius. And yeah, you do have a stellium in Sagittarius. You do. Okay, cool. So you have three, from what I'm seeing here, you have 3 planets in Sagittarius. You have Jupiter in Sagittarius. And then you have Uranus and Neptune in Sagittarius. So Jupiter is more prominent because it's an inner planet, but then, Neptune and Uranus are kind of less prominent because they're exterior planets. I hope that makes sense to you. But we'll get more into what that all means later when we get into the planets. Now, your 8th house. So, whereas the 7th house is like the personal relationships, and it's a house of associations, and it deals with a house of association, companionship, and it's also a public house, is what I'm saying. Yeah, all those things. So, the 8th house is a psychic house, first and foremost. And it's a house because it follows the 7th house, right? The 7th house kind of sets the stage for relationships, and then the 8th house intensifies the connection. You feel what I'm saying? Because the 8th house, first and foremost, is connected to Scorpio, the 8th house deals with intense emotional connections with others in relationship. You feel what I'm saying? It's one of the things it deals with. Now, also, it's a psychic house. It does deal with like mysticism, like witchcraft, sorcery, like very close to Scorpio, like taboo energies, to an extent sex, hidden things, occult things, things that go things that go make sound in the dark. But essentially is what I'm trying to articulate. Now the 8th house amongst those things also deals with things like inheritances, legacies, other people's money. The 8th house most definitely deals with other people's money. In general, it rules other people's resources. The 7th house deals with your resources, right? But then the 8th house deals with other people's resources. Anyways, so with you having your 7th house, with you having your 8th house in the sign Sagittarius, what this indicates and what this means is that there is a lot of energy. Because the 8th house is a house that does deal with energy as well, emotional energy specifically. There are a lot of emotional desires and emotional urges that kind of direct you towards like it's a pull, right? Because the 8th house connected with Scorpio, and both can be magnetic. They pull things to them. So there is most definitely a great pull into exploring and discovering like higher knowledge and higher philosophy. You feel what I'm saying? And ultimately learning, like, all right, so let's break these two down together. So with the 8th house being a psychic house and kind of dealing with going beyond the surface and kind of getting into the nitty-gritty of how things are, but also being a traumatic house because it is a house of healing and regeneration and releasing. It is an indication of needing to learn to tap into philosophical systems, spiritual systems, and really not just tap into those philosophical systems and spiritual systems, but kind of integrate with them and make them a part of your own essence. It's like the 9th house is the house of philosophy, but it's connected to a fire sign, and it's like one of the houses of life. So the 9th house deals with one's perception on life, one's philosophy. It's the house that rules the sign Sagittarius, right? That's what the 8th house, that's what the 9th house is. But then the 8th house is more like your essence, in a sense, like your essence from a perspective of what you've been groomed, conditioned, cultivated into becoming as a result of your experiences and your relationships, your experiences with your society, with your community. You know what I'm saying? Because that's the 7th house. So the 7th house kind of conditions certain, like, because of the certain experiences you go through, it conditions you to connect with individuals in a certain level of intensity, which is signified by the 8th house. And also kind of sets the stage for the 8th house, which is the house of inheritance. Because when we talk about inheritances, it doesn't have to be just physically. You feel what I'm saying? This can be like you having inherited certain qualities and attributes from individuals. You feel what I'm saying? Not even from individuals, but more so from like the tribe. A very spiritual house. So yeah. So the 8th house is kind of like your personal religious views or spiritual views that kind of have to deal with your emotion and your feelings and what has been integrated within you. But then the 9th house is more like your personal views, like so fire and water, they're very similar because both fire and water are feminine and they're emotion. So they both kind of deal with feelings, you know what I'm saying? Like the 9th house is more like your viewpoint on life according to the experiences you've went through, specifically the sort of information you've assimilated. But then the 8th house is your perception and view on life, but according to the experiences you went through, the traumas you've endured, the intense emotions, emotional connections you've gone through, etc. But anyways, there is like a benefit in learning to merge the 8th and 9th house here, because like the energy of your 8th house, Sagittarius, has an affinity for the 9th house, if that makes sense. So Sagittarius is a sign of illumination, of devotion, and of exploration. So you need to learn to illuminate yourself upon those things that deal with the scorpionic energy, but furthermore those things that deal with like your lineage and what may have been passed on to you through your bloodline. That makes sense. Like the 4th house deals with your lineage and your bloodline. It's interesting because like the 4th house kind of deals with your lineage and your bloodline, but from a perspective of like your DNA to an extent. Like it deals both with your spiritual and physical ancestors. Because like spiritually, you may not be completely aligned with your current physical bloodline. I hope that makes sense. So that's what, like the 4th house is more connected to your physical bloodline. So even your physical bloodline is to an extent spiritual. But then the 8th house more so deals with like your spiritual ancestry. And so tapping into that, you feel me? Illuminating oneself on like where it is that you came from, but from a spiritual perspective. It's like just as you have physical parents and your physical parents are the parents of your flesh, you also have spiritual parents, which are the parents of your soul. You feel what I'm saying? So that's like what I'm trying to hint at. But ultimately, without going too much into this, right? That's what is of importance here. To learn to tap in, explore, illuminate yourself upon, and cultivate a sense of devotion upon things where you may need healing upon yourself. Maybe because may have had experiences in the past upon things where you may need to put death to and transform from, because the eighth house is the house of death, and it's connected to this sign of transformation. But yeah, but also I guess with the eighth house being sign Sagittarius, kind of a devotion to becoming a little bit more intentional with your quote unquote magical abilities, because emotions are magical, you feel me, and becoming more conscious and aware on how to channel your emotions. And I bring up emotions because the eighth house, like I keep saying, is Scorpio house, right? So emotions, etc. And it's because I brought up emotion because I brought up tuning in with your magic, and where magic is concerned, emotion is very important to focus around. But anyways, now to get into your ninth house. So looking at your chart, right? Like I already talked about how you have. Actually, you don't really have a stellium in your eighth house. You have your Neptune in your eighth house. Where you do have a stellium in is, like, you have a stellium in the sign Sagittarius. Okay, in the sign Sagittarius. Anyways, let's move on. Anyways, as I was saying, with your Neptune being within the eighth house, right? My statement on the significance of tapping into your spiritual, like, heritage, lineage, is even much more like validated, you can say, with the fact that you have Neptune, right? Which is the planet. Like, Neptune is very much the planet. Okay, so Neptune is the higher octave of Venus. And Venus is the planet of social interactions, social relationships. So with Neptune being within your eighth house, it kind of redirects the message from tapping in with your spiritual lineage towards more so tapping in with your, like, spiritual, so like tribe, like soul tribe, you feel what I'm saying? And I don't even mean like physically getting in touch with people and being like, yo, I think we're like a part of the same soul tribe, but I more mean like tapping in spiritually and cultivating connections with your spiritual soul tribe, and making connections with spiritual beings that are not of the physical body. Because you are a Cancer, Sun, Scorpio, Moon, even Taurus, Ascendant. Like, because Taurus is the first earth sign. And as I talked about why it's psychic and spiritual, we don't need to touch on that again. But because you are these signs, you innately and naturally have an ability to tune in and tap into the spiritual plane. And so it's definitely of importance to start to establish those connections with your spiritual, like, community. You feel what I'm saying? And it's kind of like when you establish connections with spiritual beings that are, I guess, masters or very ascended, right? Then what happens is you kind of get a greater support in this life. And that support comes from, like, a spiritual place, you feel what I'm saying? But I do hope that makes sense. And like I said, we'll definitely dive more into it when we get into talking about Neptune and everything like that, you feel what I'm saying? Now to get into your 9th house. So your 9th house is within the sign Capricorn. Alright, and so with your 9th house being within the sign Capricorn, hold on, give me a sec, my apologies. With your 9th house being within the sign Capricorn, what this would indicate is that, like, for you, your experiences where, like, religion, philosophy, spirituality, and everything like that is concerned, there may have been experiences where like the experiences within that department of life may have been cold, they may have been rigid, may have been restricted. And so, this kind of ties back to what you were talking.
Growing up as a child was like having experienced religions, and I think you might have termed it being restricted, but let me put it like this. Capricorn is ruled by the planet Saturn, and so Aquarius and Capricorn are both ruled by Saturn. Aquarius is the lighter energy of Saturn. You know what I'm saying? Like, Aquarius is exalted within the sign Mercury. Capricorn is exalted within the planet Mars. You know what I'm saying? So Capricorn's energy is just in general very serious, very rigid, and it's like all about status. And Capricorn is the sign of, judge. It's like the judge in the courtroom or in the black, very serious energy. And so what this means is that where religion and that energy is concerned, there may have even been a cultivation of energies revolving around higher thoughts. I'll leave it at that higher thought, where it was rather like kind of restricted and rigid. But hold on, let me ground myself though, because I do want to say a little bit more and kind of go deeper into the surface. But I guess the reason why, when we're dealing with earth signs, the energy of earth is very practical, you feel me? So there's really not more for me to say than, for example, let's say I can bring up the tarot card the tarot card, and the Devil tarot card, you feel me? Because that card is connected with the energy of Capricorn, you feel me? And so that energy within that card ultimately signifies the the restrictions imposed upon us as a result of our physical desires, because that's what the devil signifies, like our physical urges and desires. And right within that card, there's like a woman and a man standing next to each other, and they both have their, you know, they have like a leash around their neck. And so in so many ways, like symbolically, the man would signify the mind and the woman would signify the soul, you feel what I'm saying? And then the devil would signify like the body and its urges. And so what this all means is that there may have been certain experiences you may have had, you know, growing up, where spirituality and just the perception on life is concerned, that was rather more restricted and more rigid, and kind of viewing life from a perspective of practicality and of like, this is how things are and this is how things are not, you know, kind of a black and white type of energy. So the thing with the sign Capricorn is, like Sagittarius, right, it belongs to the third emanation. And so the third emanation is the energy that deals with the final end result of the elements. Like the earth elements, right, deals with practicality. And so Capricorn is like the end result, the final expression of practicality. Like Taurus is the manifestation of the earth energy. Virgo is the development of the earth energy. Then Capricorn is the end result, like, you know, we've done the work and this is what we now have because we did the work. So Capricorn is like the world at large. It's like what the world deems to be practical. Like Capricorn people, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces people, they belong to the third emanation. So they're very much influenced by how things are according to the world. Very much influenced by what they receive from the outside world, you know, and more so operating from a perspective of the outside world rather than their inner yearnings and what they feel and what they think, but instead, for example, assimilating a book or observing a practical way of doing something and then adapting it. Capricorn being the earth sign, right, it deals with practical things. And so there may have been this energy of you kind of adapting a method of philosophy and spirituality because it's kind of like the practical standard. And Saturn very much does deal with conforming, you know, conforming to the standard, you feel what I'm saying? And so, yeah, I hope that makes sense. Hold on, let me look at like where you have Saturn in. So you have Saturn in the sign Libra within the 6th house, which is also a good thing, which indicates balance and equilibrium. And ultimately, in a sense, upholding fairness, justice, and equality for all as the highest code of ethic and code of morals, you feel what I'm saying? Because when Saturn is in Libra, it's exalted in the sign Libra, so that's just the general energy about Saturn. But with Saturn being in Libra, the way that it influences your your 9th house, but Saturn also being in the 6th house kind of is an indication that an area of life where your ethics and your code of conduct and morality may find expression in is in the work life, because that's the 6th house, you feel what I'm saying? Being, yeah, I'll leave it at that, but I hope that makes sense. So, in conclusion, this energy could be like finding or attempting to find expansion within the accumulation of material success, attempting to find expansion, because the ninth house is expansion mentally, of course. It's like philosophy, viewpoints. It's traditionally ruled by the sign Sagittarius, and so with the ninth house being in Capricorn, one's philosophical like system can, in a sense, kind of become material. You feel what I'm saying? And it's a value to understand. I'm not really per se saying there's negative or positive to this. You feel what I'm saying? But I guess in conclusion, like, the key phrase of Capricorn is I used, right? And Capricorn is all about opportunity, all about witnessing the various opportunities it has within life and learning how we can take advantage of those opportunities. And for you, that may be something that you might have built, in a sense, a philosophy around. That is, a philosophy around becoming resourceful and understanding how to take little and make it into a lot. You feel what I'm saying? But like I said, because Capricorn is an earthly sign, like the philosophical paradigm and the way that it works may be rather of a practical energy rather than a complex energy. But the thing about Saturn and Capricorn I also want to bring up is Capricorn very much deals with occultism, on its less materialistic standpoint. And, Capricorn is the mountain goat, right? And the mountain goat that climbs to the top of the mountain. And where mountains are concerned, the highest elevation of the mountain kind of represents and signifies spiritual enlightenment, a higher point and a higher perspective, right? So I hope that makes sense. And Capricorn is kind of like the ascended master, right? Who has climbed the mountain, but then must go back down again. So then they may assist those who are unfortunate. Like, within the energy of the Capricorn, when selfishness is evolved, like when you evolve beyond selfishness and get into selflessness, Capricorns become very charitable, very receptive, very caring, because the opposite to Capricorn is Cancer, you feel me? And it's like there's an axis between Capricorn and Cancer. It's like the Cancer can tap into the Capricorn energy and start manifesting Capricorn traits, but then the Capricorn can manifest Cancerian traits. And what it is a means of balance, you feel me? It's an importance in balancing, to learn to tap into the opposite side. But yeah, beyond its selfishness, Capricorn can learn to become rather giving and charitable and caring. So there is that other aspect of it that's cool. And it's reflected upon your Saturn placement as well, with it being in the sign of balance, in the house of labor and service. But anyways, let's get into the 10th house now. So your 10th house is going to be in Aquarius, as it is in Aquarius. So your 10th house is in Aquarius. Both your 10th house and your Saturn. So your 10th house is in Capricorn, meaning it's ruled by the planet Saturn. So your 10th house is an air sign, and Saturn is in an air sign. The 10th house is the house of reputation. You feel me? It is the house of recognition, house of status. You feel me? All of these different things. And with your 10th house being within the sign Aquarius, right? This indicates that where status and prestige and recognition is concerned, that energy is very much entangled within Okay, so let's get into it. Philosophy is very much of an Aquarian thing. It's an Aquarian thing, and it's also a Scorpio thing. You feel what I'm saying? Aquarius, like Scorpio, also has a very natural understanding of human nature. That's because Aquarius rules humanity at large. It rules the collective. But Aquarius rules the collective consciousness, but from the perspective of like our books, our thoughts, because it's an air sign, right? Our data. But then Pisces rules the collective consciousness from perspective of our emotions, our beliefs, our feelings, our joys, our pains, our sorrows, etc. So first and foremost, with you having Aquarius here in the 10th house, it indicates that you will acquire recognition for things like your knowledge and what you know. The key phrase for Aquarius is I know, you know? And it's knowledge and information. So the information you have and the things that you know are going to be one of those things that really assist, you feel what I'm saying, in attracting to you just consciousness. I mean, attention. And it's like the more you can align with the Aquarius energy, which is networking, putting yourself out there, connecting with people, you know, bringing value to people, especially in the form of knowledge, information, the better and the more attention you will receive, the more status you can build, the more recognition you can attain. And because your 10th house ruler, Saturn, is in Libra, it's not so much that you will build your recognition and status by appealing to the masses, because you know Aquarius deals with groups of people, but it's more so like, sure, initially appealing to the masses, but then cherry picking specific individuals that you may want to like work with. You feel what I'm saying? Because with Saturn being in the 6th house in the sign Libra, 6th house is the house of work, the house of labor. You feel me? But then Aquarius just deals with people at large. So it's all about tapping into the Aquarius energy, creating a network, and then tapping into Libra energy and working with people one-on-one. You feel me? And that is how, like, you'll leave I think it's like a legacy, right? Because it's like the 8th house deals with legacies, and the 10th house also a little bit deals with legacies. You feel what I'm saying? Like, well, the 10th house is like how you build your legacy while you're born, but a legacy is left behind after someone is dead, right? So you can't, like, a legacy is not something of a living origin, I guess, but the 10th house is how you build your legacy. So very much energies where knowledge, teaching, researching, you know, the accumulation of information, the working with people, the tapping into human psychology, human nature, and just acquainting yourself with humanity is typically one of the ways you already acquire knowledge and awareness. My bad, you acquire attention and recognition by, it can even be by your humanitarian acts. And furthermore, like, Aquarius rules over the internet, right? It rules over the internet. I was gonna say electricity, but that's not important. It rules over the internet, you know? And so, yeah, the internet, as you've experienced, right, which you are going viral, the internet is going to be one of the places where you're going to be able to acquire, like, recognition and attain recognition and develop status. Now, it's interesting that your 10th house is in Aquarius, which makes Saturn your 10th house ruler. And then Saturn is in the sign of Libra, which is a sign of relationships. And you've gotten tremendous attention, 10th house, for your knowledge of the psychological aspect of relationships. Libra, you feel me? So that's definitely worth pinpointing and refining. You feel what I'm saying? Where Sagittarius, where Saturn is concerned, refinement is important. It's like tapping into something, getting your feet wet to make sure that it's not too cold, but then realizing that it's freezing cold. You feel what I'm saying? And then having to lay out a plan of execution to submerge yourself into the water. And this can be learning how to breathe, tapping into certain breath works that help you regulate the blood flow into your body, through your body, and learning to increase your temperature so then the water isn't too cold. And that's Saturn. Saturn is another maleficent planet. So with Saturn, things that Saturn brings to you don't come easy. They usually are difficult, belittling, because Saturn opposes the sun. The sun is you, the ego, your identity. And then Saturn is like the collective standard idea. You feel what I'm saying? It's like what everybody has conformed to. It's like the judge, like I said earlier. So you getting judged and receiving negative energy. It's like Saturn is also the planet of crystallization. So you need to learn how to crystallize and release and transform that energy. And developing your human skills, you know what I'm saying? Because both Libra and Aquarius are very humanitarian, people, right? Because they're air signs. They very much deal with communication and people skills. So kind of learning how to, because comedians, for example, comedians are excellent communicators. And it's funny I bring up comedians because Cancer is a very funny sign, very comedic. Kevin Hart is a comedian. Kevin Gates is an Aquarius, but Kevin Hart is a comedian. You feel what I'm saying? And Kevin Hart, is a comedian. I'm pretty sure he has Gemini placements. But anyways, comedians are great communicators. They know how to set up a sentence, set up communication in a way where it's like they will say the most offensive stuff, but because the way that they set it up before they said that offensive thing, people don't get offended. You feel what I'm saying? People laugh, or people acquire inspiration or whatever. So in general, within communication, you can say whatever to an extent. I mean, you really can say whatever if you know how to set it up. But to an extent, you can say things that, pinpoint people's pains. But depending on how you set it up and etc., you will kind of receive a different reaction. You feel what I'm saying? And kind of learning and understanding how to properly disagree with someone, or how to rearrange a person's perception. Because people, right, when it comes to their perceptions on life, it's ingrained within them. It's deeply rooted within them. You feel me? It's their life. So when someone comes to them and someone tries to change the way that they think, it's scary. It threatens them. It threatens their way of being, their way of living. If they were to align with this idea that's opposed to what they think, then that's like them admitting that their whole life is a lie. You feel me? So as a communicator, Aquarius in the 10th house shows that you're going to be recognized publicly for your knowledge and your communicative abilities, and you're gonna engage with people and network with people. So it's important to learn to develop your communication skills and things like that. And maybe in the future, you know, I can help you with that. At the moment, I don't have any services that tailored towards communication, but I'm a Gemini stellium, you know. I'm pretty invested in linguistics and studying communication, so eventually I will be creating a course and I'll share it with you. It wouldn't be a course, yeah, I will, of course, because you don't really need one-on-ones for that. But anyways, yeah, you know, because Libra is like all about balance and equilibrium and harmony. You feel what I'm saying? Like I said, we'll get more into Libra when we get into your Saturn, because your Saturn and Libra is how the Libra energy expresses in your life. You feel what I'm saying? So we'll get more into Libra later. But anyways, yeah, that's pretty much like the 10th house, which is in the sign Aquarius. Okay, now let's get into the 11th house. Okay, so as far as the 11th house is concerned, your 11th house would be in the sign Pisces. Now, let me just double check just because. So, yes. So yes, your 11th house is within the sign Pisces. With your 11th house being in the sign Pisces, what this indicates and what this means is that Pisces, well, before I get into Pisces, about the 11th house. The 11th house is the house of Aquarius, right? So a lot of things we talked about Aquarius is connected to the 11th house. The 11th house is your network, right? Which creates your net worth. Who you know is how much you can essentially accomplish in life as well. So the 11th house is the house of networks, the house of social affairs, the house that deals with social engagements. You know what I'm saying? How you are received publicly speaking, how it is that your area of life where social dynamics are concerned is set up, right? But yeah, this is pretty much that. Then it's also a house of networking, of knowledge and information because of affinity with Aquarius. But the 11th house, like the 7th and the 3rd house, is a house of association. So there are houses, there's a trinity, right? 3 houses. The first 3 houses are the houses of life, and that's the 1st, the 5th, and the 9th house. They influence things dealing with life. The second trinity is the houses of wealth, which is the 2nd, the 6th, and the 10th house. These houses deal with wealth and the accumulation of material groundedness. Then the 3rd trinity is the trinity of association, which is the 3rd, 7th, and 11th house. So the 11th house is a house of associationship. But it's whereas the 7th house was the house of personal relationships, personal associations, this 11th house is like public networking of settings and affairs, where it's like you go out and you meet random people for the sake of networking, or you go out and you make a new friend. You don't know this friend well, right? They're not in your 3rd house, just like your immediate environment. So you kind of have no choice but to engage with them because they're always around you. And they're not in your 7th house because you haven't established a personal connection with the person. You haven't built any memorable experiences with this person. They're in your 11th house. They're in your radar, but you guys are just acquaintances. That's the 11th house. You feel me? First and foremost, with your 11th house being in the sign Pisces, Pisces is a sign of emotional receptivity. You feel me? Pisces is the last water sign. Being the last water sign, I kind of talked a little bit about Pisces, explaining how Pisces deals with the collective consciousness from an emotional standpoint. So if you have an 11th house in Pisces, you're kind of a person who is very emotionally receptive. You may be emotionally receptive to others, Like people, when they first meet you, they may feel like this Piscean energy about you. Not mistaking you for a Pisces per se, but like they feel as if you are a very receptive person, very like caring, like selfless, right? I should say, because Pisces is a very self-sacrificial sign, very selfless sign. You feel me? So there may be this energy of like, this person is so nice and so kind. Pisces is ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter is like the jovial planet, you know, very jolly. And of course, Pisces is more like of the feminine and negative expression of Jupiter. So although Pisces is very nurturing and caring, and like there can be like this fantasy energy about Pisces, this energy of like in your social life, right? Of you like either being created into a fantasy or created into like people applying their imagination about you more. And what I mean by this is kind of when you first meet someone, it may be that you may kind of mistaken their energy because there's this like like illusion type of energy present, or fantasy type of energy present about them that may enable you to truly perceive them for who they are, or vice versa. Like they may project illusions about you and about your energy. But also like, because Pisces is a water sign and it's receptive and there's all these things going on, the unconscious mind, like another thing of importance is learning how to protect and conceal your energy where network is concerned, where meeting random different people is concerned. You feel what I'm saying? And yeah. So what else can I say about Pisces? Hold on, never mind, I don't need to do that. But I think I kind of said the general energy of it. So furthermore, with you having Pisces in the 11th house, this can be an indication, because Pisces is a spiritual sign, right? An indication that you may have a tendency possibly of, attracting spiritual people into your circle and enjoying spiritual networks and connections. And it may also even be an indication of you kind of attracting all types of people from all types, like all different walks of life, because like I said, Pisces is the last sign and it's a mix of energies. You feel what I'm saying? It's a collective of energies. It's a water sign. It's a mutable water sign, and water is liquid. So Pisces is actually water, and that can even indicate that you of yourself are a very flexible and adaptable person where social affairs are concerned. And you may kind of know how to wear the different hats according to what the social affair is. You feel what I'm saying? Like what the social affair is. Yeah, it's pretty much the 11th house. Now let's get into the 12th house. Okay, so your 12th house is in the sign Aries. So the 12th house is, well, let me go back into the 11th house, so the 12th house is the house of Pisces. So just thinking about the 12th house kind of brought up more Pisces energy into my mind I can speak on. So within your 11th house, you may attract certain people that may, as you have experienced, kind of bring their baggage to you, because Pisces is the sign of baggage. And it's the sign of healing, right? And you already know this though, but that's your 11th house, Pisces. That's one of the reasons why you attract that energy of people kind of feeling comfortable and transparent with you enough to open themselves up and release their stuff onto you. Scorpio experiences that too. It's kind of like Scorpio, Pisces, and Cancer. It's kind of like a water sign thing. You think of water. Water is very much magnetic. It pulls things. You feel what I'm saying? It draws things to it. It doesn't push things away. So yeah, like you fall into water, and like the water is not per se sinking you in. Just because like the way that the water is, you sink. I guess because of gravity and stuff like that. But anyways, back to the 12th house. The 12th house is the last house. It is the house of transcendence, first and foremost. It is the house of baggage as well. The house of sorrows. Like Pisces is the sign of baggage and sorrows, and the 12th house is the house of baggage and sorrows. Because Pisces in the 12th house, there's similar energies. You feel what I'm saying? So yeah. It's like the house of one's hidden abilities and talents and skill sets and things like that. And so with you having Aries, with you having Aries within the 12th house, first and foremost, there is an indication that there may be an immense amount of baggage that is carried throughout the life that deals with one's identity, one's ego, how you see yourself, the certain experiences you may have had that equate to how you see yourself, your ambitions, your desire to strive, your desire to be first place, number one. You feel what I'm saying? Because that's all Aries energy. Like, it's kind of like, to give an example of the 12th house energy. You know that, like, that psychological treatment that they do on baby elephants, where it's like a baby elephant, because this is so then, they can domesticate the elephant and kind of control it when it grows up, right? They take a pole, they put the pole in the dirt, and they tie the elephant onto the pole, and as a child, as a baby, the elephant tries and tries and tries to pull away from the pole, but after finding it can't, it's impossible, it's difficult, the elephant retires its hope of escaping. And then years later, the elephant is a huge beast, animal, right? And now it can easily and effortlessly pull like a pick, right? The pull from the dirt with ease, but it doesn't because it has been conditioned. It's a baggage, right, that it carries. It's a sorrow that it carries that's rooted deep within it. That's no, I've already tried in the past, but that's impossible to accomplish. Now, the sign Aries is very much, first and foremost, it is the first sign, right? So its key phrase is I am, and it resonates to the energy of ego. The sun is exalted within the sign Aries. Aries is all about shining, all about becoming number one. It's all about accomplishments. And ultimately, it's all about self-belief, self-esteem, pride, self-confidence, believing in oneself, believing that one is capable, feeling free, because it's the first sign, right? There's no limitations upon it. It's the first energy. So it's free to be and free to do as it wishes and as it likes. It's like the magic. Is it the magician or is it the fool? You can say it's the magician. Right? The magician utilizes the different elements to program its own reality. Being the programmer of its reality, kind of not allowing anyone to tell it what it is and what it isn't. But being the alchemist, you feel what I'm saying? That's very much Aries energy. And so ultimately, what this indicates is that there are certain restrictions and limitations imposed unconsciously as a result of having experiences in the past that impose upon one's own belief. So Aries and Libra are polar opposites. Libra is the energy, the sign of relationships, partners, togetherness. Aries is opposed to that. Aries is the sign of me, I, individuality. You feel what I'm saying? Like I'll do it myself. Like it's very solo dolo isolated. So there just may be certain restrictions and limitations imposed where belief of self is concerned. You feel what I'm saying? But yeah, it's pretty much that. And I hope that makes sense with the Aries energy. And if it didn't make sense, we definitely do have that clarity session, you feel what I'm saying, for you to tap into, and we can do that, and you'll learn some more. But without further ado, that pretty much is the second section. Within the third section, we'll be talking about the planets, you feel what I'm saying, which is a very, very, very valuableness, you feel what I'm saying. So yeah, definitely look forward to doing that for you, you feel me. And then after the planets, we'll talk about the aspects. That's when we really get into like strengths and weaknesses, because the aspects deal with how the different planets relate with the different houses. And when you understand how the different planets relate with the different houses, you understand which houses are like positively influencing each other, which departments of life are positively influencing each other, and which departments of life are negatively influencing each other. But before I conclude the the 12th house, before I conclude this reading, I did mention that the 12th house was hidden gifts and hidden talents. So, and it's the unconscious mind. So with you having Aries here, there is this unconscious energy of you having this immense ability to achieve and utilize your self-belief and self-assertion as a fuel to acquire your ambitions and your goals. But it's kind of like that elephant, you feel what I'm saying, who is oblivious to the fact that it can now free itself from the pull, right? That was that it couldn't have that it couldn't, release when it was a child, but now it can. Because, the 12th house is hidden strengths and hidden abilities. But yeah, I wanted to bring that up as well before I concluded. But yeah, peace, peace, peace.